Hello and good evening and welcome to World Today. I'm Gautam Roy. This is the show where we offer you a window to the world, get you all that has happened, well, during the course of the day and even beyond in the entire world. And what we're talking about today is, of course, a warning that has been issued by Prime Minister Modi at the Sydney dialogue related to cryptocurrencies, apart from highlighting how India is going through key transformations where digitization is concerned. It's having an impact on almost every aspect of life and society. We'll tell you more about it, but first, our headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India is the world's third largest and fastest growing startup ecosystem at the Sydney Dialogue on Cyber and Critical Technologies, identifies 5 key transitions unfolding in the country, from building the world's most extensive public information infrastructure to being future ready. The PM sounds a dire warning related to cryptocurrencies during his keynote address at the Sydney Dialogue, says it can spoil the youth, stresses on the need for democracies to come together to ensure it does not end up in the wrong hands. India gets re-elected to the executive board of the UN's Cultural and Education Organization UNESCO for the 2021-25 term. Minister of State for External Affairs Meenakshi Lekhi thanks the 164 member countries who supported India in the election. Ominous warning to the UNSC from UN envoy to Afghanistan on the ISKP, says the regional affiliate of the Islamic State group now appears present in nearly all Afghan provinces and is increasingly active, and the Taliban has been unable to curb its growth despite using violent extrajudicial means. And Spain's Gabin Muguruza claims her first WTA finals title, defeating Estonian Anett Kontaveit 6-3, 7-5. Muguruza is the first Spaniard to win the WTA finals singles title in the event's history. Let's now begin with the big news of the hour, which is Prime Minister Modi delivering the keynote address at the Sydney Dialogue. Well, like I said, Prime Minister Narendra Modi presented India as a country of 1.3 billion people undergoing an unprecedented digital transformation in every key sphere of life. Delivering the keynote address at the first Sydney Dialogue on Cyber and Critical Technologies, the PM said India is the world's third largest and fastest growing startup ecosystem. He also identified 5 key transitions unfolding in the country and sounded a cautionary note on cryptocurrencies.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivered keynote address at the inaugural Sydney Dialogue via video conferencing on Thursday. PM spoke on the theme of India's technology evolution and revolution. The Prime Minister said the digital age is changing everything around us. It has redefined politics, economy and society, and is raising new questions on sovereignty, governance, ethics, law rights and security. The Prime Minister appealed to the world to come together on misuse of cryptocurrency.
Take cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, for example. It is important that all democratic nations work together on this and ensure it does not end up in wrong hands, which can spoil our youth. Friends, we are at a historic moment of choice, whether all the wonderful powers of technology of our age will be instruments of cooperation or conflict, coercion or choice, domination or development, operation or opportunity.
Prime Minister highlighted the 5 important transitions taking place in India. Firstly, he said we are building the world's most extensive public information infrastructure being built in India.
We are building the world's most extensive public information infrastructure. Over 1.3 billion Indians have a unique digital identity. We are on our way to connect 600,000 villages with broadband.
Prime Minister Modi said India is transforming the lives of the people by using digital technology for governance, inclusion, empowerment, connectivity, delivery of benefits and welfare.
We are transforming the lives of the people by using digital technology for governance, inclusion, empowerment, connectivity, delivery of benefits and welfare. Everyone has heard of India's financial inclusion, banking, and digital payment revolution.
Mentioning about the third transition, Prime Minister said, India has the world's third largest and fastest growing startup ecosystem.
India has the world's third largest and fastest growing startup ecosystem. New unicorns are coming up every few weeks. They are providing solutions to everything from health and education to national security.
Fourthly, the Prime Minister said India's industry and service sectors, even agriculture, are undergoing massive digital transformation.
India's industry and services sectors, even agriculture, are undergoing massive digital transformation. We are also using digital technology for clean energy transition, conversion of resources, and protection of biodiversity.
The Prime Minister also said there is a large effort to prepare India for future.
There is a large effort to prepare India for the future. We are investing in developing indigenous capabilities in telecom technology such as 5G and 6G. India is one of the leading nations in artificial intelligence and machine learning, especially in human-centered and ethical use of artificial intelligence. We are developing strong capabilities in cloud platforms and cloud computing. This is key to resilience and digital sovereignty.
The address was preceded by introductory remarks by the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison.
Australia and India share a deep, deep friendship, or as they say in India, maitri. Our ties are strong and enduring. We are two countries that have learnt much from each other. We spur each other on to greater advances across so many fronts. Technology is crucial to the shared vision we have for our times.
Giving a roadmap for democracies to work together, Prime Minister Modi called for a collaborative framework to invest together in research and development and future technology, to develop trusted manufacturing base and trusted supply chains, to deepen intelligence and operational cooperation on cybersecurity, protect critical information infrastructure, to prevent manipulation of public opinions, to develop technical and governance standards and norms consistent with our democratic values, and to create standards and norms for data governance and for cross-border flow that protect and secure data. World Today Desk, DD India.
All right, let's now connect with our guests for the evening to talk about what is the significance of first the PM delivering the keynote address at the Sydney Dialogue, which is all about cyber and critical technologies and the things that they had to say over there as well. We have Anil Kumar Truganayat with us, former senior diplomat, and also Pavan Dugal, cybersecurity expert and analyst. Welcome to you both and very good evening. First, you, Anil Truganayat, just contextualize this moment for the country, the Prime Minister addressing the, delivering the keynote address at the Sydney Dialogue, and which is, of course, showcasing the kind of transformation India is undergoing because of all things digital.
Well, Gaurav, you're so right. In fact, this is the first dialogue, Sydney Dialogue, it is called the first edition of it.
Yes, the inaugural edition.
to be Prime Minister. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And the Prime Minister really laid out the roadmap for what India is going to be, what India is, what are its strengths, and what are the new challenges, especially for the democracies that he has mentioned. So I think that he had very clearly put India on the digital roadmap and digital map of the world. And with Australia, as you know, in the past few years, we have seen our relationship going from strength to strength across the spectrum, as Scott Morrison also said. So I think that what Prime Minister has said through his 5 ideas that he has given, he has talked about data being used for empowerment of the people. That is extremely important. And how the democracies can work, how you could have the trusted value and supply chains, and how the digital revolution can be brought about. You know, today what we are seeing, we have already shown a lot of things that are being done, that can be done. Of course, India has been a bit late in the day. In as far as investments in the R&D infrastructure is concerned, but now we are catching up very fast. I mean, taking the digital and means to 600,000 villages is no mean task. To reach out to about 1.3 billion people, I mean, taking them through the 4G, 5G, 6G networks is going to really change the way. And I think that one of the benefits of the pandemic has been that there has been a tremendous digitization of the whole spectrum of our lifespan, and whether it is digital transactions that we undertake or whether it is ordering services and providing services to that. Like he mentioned about the COVID app, I mean, frankly, these are some of the things that have been able to, they have been iconic in that sense of the term. And India has risen during the times of need for the world. And I think that India has today, as far as technology is concerned, we still have to cross the bar. But at the same time, I think that at the grassroots level, there has been a tremendous dissemination of technology, and that's what provides you the edge. Of course, we have to be part of the global value supply chains, and that's what his call has been today.
Certainly, global value supply chains is one critical area that India wants to see it advance in a major way, because that is what will make India more and more Atmanirbhar as well. And Pawan Duggal, you've of course tracked the journey of India's digital transformation right from inception, and you've also put up red flags when required, both regulatory and otherwise. So what do you make of the Prime Minister's keynote address at the Sydney Dialogue first?
I think the Prime Minister's keynote address today represents a new mindset. It actually projects a new Indian thinking to the rest of the world. Well, India has been leading by example, and the kind of focus that India has been putting on the digital ecosystem has been remarkable and noteworthy ever since 2014. But right now, the coming of COVID-19 has also taught the world, and specifically India, on how to come up with new customized approaches on how to deal with these new challenges of COVID-19. So in a scenario like this, I think he has touched on a variety of aspects. I specifically focus on his touching on the crypto assets.
Yes, I want to come to that a little later. I want to talk about the overall thing first, and then we'll focus on crypto.
I think the focus is broadly on the importance of cyber, the importance of cyber security, and how India is leading on the front. So if a country of 1 billion plus can do things correctly, then that's a great message to the rest of the world, specifically the smaller nations, that look, this is the model that they could potentially be using for the purposes of digitization and for the purposes of getting in more transparency and accountability. Look, ever since transparency has come in to more digital paradigms in the governance processes, well, it's led to a massive change. Also, people's mindset has begun changing. So the very fact that the Prime Minister gets called over to give a keynote at the Sydney event only shows one thing: the growing clout of India, the increasing global international recognition of the fact that India is growing by leaps and bounds, specifically in the context of its work using technology, and also it's a great recognition of the fact that a lot of these governance models in the digital India ecosystem that have begun start working should be important precursors of other steps that other countries need to take in order to get the digital journey on the right note.
And Anil Trugana, do you think there's a clear message there that India is a huge opportunity for everyone? It's always been that, but when it comes to digital technology, and the fact that we're at the forefront of that. We've got unicorns emerging. The maximum number of unicorns, record numbers this year, over 40 already, and this year is still not done. That India is a source of providing digital products and services that the entire world can use, and it can come very cost effectively and the best of the best.
Yes, you are absolutely right. I mean, that's what Prime Minister was trying to pitch in when he was inviting the world to come and, especially the democracies, to come and invest in India. I mean, as you know that from the 80s onwards, when we had India's ICT revolution, and that has brought India on the knowledge map of the world. And that is provided today now. We have to move into the Industrial Revolution 4.0, which will be artificial intelligence driven. So we have the necessary wherewithal, we have the necessary manpower and skilled people there to take it forward. Only thing that was needed was a little bit of more direction and the emphasis, and that the Prime Minister has very clearly provided. Now, of course, with the technology, there are tremendous challenges that are going to be coming forth, whether it is in the domain of the cyber security, or whether the domains of the espionage, or even disabling the complete ecosystem. I mean, that is going to be the next kind of a warfare. So that's where I think we will have to work together, because technology can be used either way and is used by the others, especially when you have certain countries who can create mischief for you in that sense of the term. Therefore, international collaboration with the like-minded countries is absolutely essential in my view, and I think the Prime Minister has very clearly conveyed that, and India has these strengths. I mean, as you mentioned about you also mentioned about the unicorns, or for example, the new innovative companies that are coming into India. India is the third largest.
Yes.
As far as the new countries are concerned. And a lot of countries have shown interest in India's expertise and the strength of this area. So in my view, I think we are well placed across the total medium of this digitization for the artificial intelligence driven industrial revolution 4.0.
Certainly. And Pawan Duggal, when it comes to ensuring that all these powerful technologies that can really transform lives are also, grown in a manner, developed in a manner that they only deliver their positives and not the negatives, because it's a double-edged sword. He also talked about the kind of architecture that India is building and the scope for partnership there with other countries as well, and other companies from other countries too.
Clearly, Prime Minister Modi has focused on the open arms approach of the Indian nation. He has focused on partnership, and he's welcoming stakeholders, state and non-state, across the world, so that they can not just come inside India, but also partner with India and the Indian digital ecosystem. The very fact that he was able to highlight the significance of the UPI, or the United Payments Interface, as the single largest payment working system in the world, he was actually trying to give us a signal that, look, here's a wonderful mechanism how other nations could also piggyback on the models that India has built. Further, he has actually very ably demonstrated the utter significance of Arogya Setu in India to deliver COVID-19 vaccines to people across a huge geography of India. And when we've been able to get so many of these doses together, it's only a kind of a recognition of the fact that the resolve of the government to get the maximum number of people vaccinated in the least possible period of time is not just a utopian idea, but is something that's very easily achievable, provided there's appropriate political will. I think he's highlighted the massive significance of digital evolution, the importance of newly emerging technologies, the importance of cyber security, and by his address, he's actually effectively given a call to other nations in different parts of the world that the time has come that you cannot now no longer work in solos. The time for collaboration, the time for joining hands, and the time for partnership is now ripe. And now, as we are ending towards the close of the COVID-19 era, and as the golden age of cybercrime has begun, the challenges of law, of ethics, of policy that the increasing cybercrime and cybersecurity breaches of the world are posing the nations, I think, are important enough that countries must sit up and take note of them and try to come up with appropriate customized mechanisms and approaches to deal with the same. So for all said and done, a very holistic, very positive, future-looking message that Prime Minister Modi has actually given at the Sydney Dialogue. But more significantly, he's effectively representing the hopes and aspirations of all stakeholders, whether in the digital ecosystem or not, that look, through digital transformation, the actual lives of the people can be substantially benefited in the coming times.
Certainly. And now let's talk about cryptocurrency, because the PM really sounded out a warning about it. He said it can spoil our youth, and all democracies need to work together to figure out what to do about it. And perhaps the indication that it needs to be regulated, that's something that's been talked about for a while in the country now. There has been talk of a bill. The RBI governor has been saying that it's not a good thing. It cannot be made a legal tender. We've had efforts to stop any transactions in it, but the courts intervened. Anil Trugunath, what is the meaning of, again, the PM making a point about cryptocurrencies at a forum like the Sydney Dialogue? We'll come to Pawan Duggal after that and just talk about the issue itself.
Well, the issue is very simple, because see, the governments normally are behind the schedule, are behind any real innovation that take place. Now, when we are talking of the digital world, the cryptocurrency is a given. We are talking about digital transactions across, but the problem is that you don't have the institutions, you don't have the regulatory mechanisms. So it has been going around for quite some time now, and most of the governments don't know how to handle it, frankly. I mean, that is the problem, and that has been the main issue as far as the cryptocurrency is concerned. Now you are seeing, I don't know if it's true or not, but that some of the leading people of the world, they are saying we have made 6,000% benefit in this and profits over time. So what Prime Minister is trying to say is that this cryptocurrency, as we know that earlier there was the financing of the terrorism and all that, I mean, how the narco-terrorism was going on, and cryptocurrencies can be easily used for these kind of activities. They can go into, different people can do a lot of things that are not desirable, especially for the youth, as he says very clearly, because people get hooked onto this. There is a very quick turnout, and one sees, whatever one has read, is that quite a few people are, I mean, they are at least, they are being attributed to certain statements on this. So certain regulation is required. You cannot stop it. It is impossible to stop it today, because it works on these blockchain technologies, it works on this connecting the masses on the digital domain. So, I mean, when you are going to be a digital world, when artificial intelligence is going to play the leading role in the world, I doubt very much that we can dispense with it. So what is the best course, which has always been the case, whether in the financial institutions or otherwise? We have seen the same kind of thing is strict regulation will be required. Now, it is not only the national regulation, there has to be an international regulation for that also. And that's what he said, that all the world must come together in this, so that there is a proper exchange, proper regulation, proper control, and at least accountability somewhere to be fixed. The banks are not happy about it because it's going to be totally digital.
Well, yes, the central bank won't be happy about it. It doesn't want an alternative currency to be in the market, and it has no control over it. But Pawan Duggal, now put in perspective what the PM said at the Sydney Dialogue with what is happening in the country in the first place with cryptocurrency, because we see a lot of ads, and there was a lot of alarm over that because ads are promising dramatic returns and all that, and the PM is saying it's spoiling the youth. What is the situation as far as cryptocurrency in India is concerned at the moment? Why is it causing so much concern?
But the real position on the ground is that there is a fire that's raging in the forest. Everybody's imagination is fired. Everybody wants to make millions of rupees on just a click of a button. And therefore, there's a huge kind of a rush to capture as many crypto assets or currencies that people can lay their hand to. Little are people realizing that these are not legal tenders. These are primarily market-driven exercises which are highly speculative. And given the fact that India does not have a legal framework yet to recognize crypto assets and cryptocurrencies, you are effectively going in a gray zone. But the fact now remains is that crores of Indians have already spent huge volumes of money on these crypto assets. Unfortunately, there is no kind of safety shield for the customers or the consumers at large. So while some people will make money, the fact is that a lot of people may end up losing a lot of money. And if they do that, they're going to come back and complain to the government to say, sir, what were you doing while I was investing into this exercise? So therefore, there's now an urgent call that's been felt across various stakeholders, including within the Parliamentary Standing Committee, that there's now the need for an appropriate regulation. I've been talking for a long time that banning of crypto assets and cryptocurrencies is of no use. It would not work. Crypto assets and cryptocurrencies represent the present and the future. So therefore, enablement and minimal regulation is what is currently required. And if India wants, it can actually go through the low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit is consider these crypto assets as merely electronic records and deal with appropriate legality before dealing with the more contentious issue as to whether it can be called a legal tender or not. Because if you are going to deal with that, then there are immense number of challenges. There are huge changes that will require to be made under Indian law. But I think the Indian Information Technology Act 2000 could be a starting point. In fact, the government, if it wants, it has the power under Section 87 of the Information Technology Act 2000 to come up with appropriate guidelines in the context of crypto assets as electronic assets. And the government can actually come up with
and
this.
these will be legally enforceable guidelines?
Noise of regulation. Let's hope India chooses the right steps as it moves forward, because over-regulation will overkill, but minimal regulation may help the crypto ecosystem to survive and thrive.
You're saying guidelines, these will be legally enforceable because there's also talk of a law.
Yeah, there's talk of a law. Also, there's a cryptocurrency bill that was supposed to be in place. We don't know its text yet. If a new bill comes in, that's the best way. Why? Because this is a new animal that we are dealing with, and it will require new skill sets and new tools to deal with this. But in the alternative, till such time a new legislation does not come in, since the government has the requisite power to deal with appropriate aspects in the digital ecosystem, ultimately a crypto asset or a cryptocurrency is nothing but data and information in the electronic form. And therefore, it has the requisite powers under secondary legislation, under Section 87 of the IT Act, that it can come up with appropriate guidelines. And these rules have the same effect as the IT Act itself, because under the IT Act, all rules made under the IT Act shall have the force of law of the IT Act. So that's one option available, but ideally you'll require a new legislation, a new approach, but for that a holistic, shall I say, consultation with all stakeholders will be crucial before government proceeds to move forward in this direction.
And Anant Raghunath, if one were to look at what is happening in the world, different countries treating cryptocurrency in a different manner. You have countries like El Salvador, where it was made a legal tender by the president, which had a bit of a some sort of a backlash as well in the country perhaps, but clearly, I mean, there are different schools of thought on it, and there is a lack of unity of approach.
Well, of course, I mean, it's a very new thing for most countries, I mean, this is a sort of an innovation in the monetary domain. I mean, that's something like this. So I believe that smaller countries are able to take quicker decisions, can find out. I mean, about the country which was the most digitized country in the world was Estonia, which is a small country, and today it is also a leader in many areas. I mean, as far as the digitization of all services, everything is concerned. Countries like Rwanda, I mean, in Africa, they have digitized their services, government services, to the extent of 95% already. In India, there is a tremendous revolution that is going on. So when you are going to digitize, and when you are asking that you are moving data, $1 million rupees from X account to the Y account to this or that, then you are simply transferring data in a way, and the currency gets credited or not credited, whatever it is. It is very similar in my view, and it is something that is very difficult, unless there is a bust, complete bust. Bubble burst like that thing, so very soon something happens, because it's a collation of all the assets, and then you're putting a value on it and then exchanging it or through the digital means. I mean, simply put. So I think that, because I was talking to some people who are in the US and all, who are working on this in a very big way, but there need to be a very strong, I think, regulation, so that the people who get enticed, like stock market, is very similar to that in that certain terms. So, but here it is digital assets, everything is digitized, monetized in the digital manner. So you really can't just go and take it on like that. So I think that this is the problem, that's why Prime Minister said that it has to be a global effort.
Yes.
To regulate it.
Well, certainly, I mean, cryptocurrency is a fascinating subject, and we can just talk on and on about it, but there is the time constraint. Pawan Duggal, I will, of course, try and get you on another show to talk about it as well. But for now, thank you so much for joining us, Anant Raghunath as well as Pawan Duggal. A clear message through the Sydney Dialogue to the world where Prime Minister Modi is concerned not just about cryptocurrencies but the digital transformation that India is undergoing right now and the kind of limitless possibilities that it offers, not just to come into India and make the most of those opportunities, but what India can provide to the world as well. Excuse me. Now, Prime Minister Modi also addressed the concluding session of the conference on creating synergies for seamless credit flow and economic growth today itself, a little earlier. The conference was organized by the Finance Services Department of the Finance Ministry. The PM listed out steps to strengthen the banking system and all that has been done to do that already. The PM also said that the banking sector in the country is now in a very strong position due to the reforms in that particular sector carried out over the last 6 to 7 years, and there's more to come.
सरकार ने बीते 6-7 वर्षों में बैंकिंग सेक्टर में जो रिफॉर्म्स किए, बैंकिंग सेक्टर का हर तरह से सपोर्ट किया, उस वजह से आज देश का बैंकिंग सेक्टर बहुत ही मजबूत स्थिति में है। आप भी ये महसूस करते हैं कि बैंकों की फाइनेंशियल हेल्थ अब काफी सुधरी हुई स्थिति में है। 2014 के पहले की जितनी भी परेशानियां थी, जितनी भी चुनौतियां थी, हमने एक एक करके उनके समाधान के रास्ते तलाशे हैं।
The Prime Minister also said that the government took steps to recover billions of rupees stuck during previous government regimes in all kinds of bad loans. He said that the recovery of 5 lakh crore rupees has been completed so far.
पहले की सरकारों के समय जो लाखों करोड़ रुपए फंसाए गए थे, उनमें से 5 लाख करोड़ रुपए से अधिक की रिकवरी की जा चुकी है। साथियों, जो ये पैसे वापस लेने वाला हमारी कोशिश है, नीतियों का भी आधार लिया है, कानून का भी आधार लिया है, डिप्लोमेटिक चैनल का भी उपयोग किया है, और मैसेज भी बहुत साफ है कि यही एक रास्ता है, लौट आइए। और ये प्रक्रिया आज भी चल रही है। नेशनल एसेट रिकंस्ट्रक्शन कंपनी, इसके गठन से और 30,000 करोड़ रुपए से अधिक की सरकारी गारंटी से भी लगभग 2 लाख करोड़ रुपए के स्ट्रेस एसेट आने वाले समय में रिजॉल्व होने का अनुमान है।
The PM also said that Atmanirbhar initiatives opened up the doors for new opportunities. He said that corporates and startups are emerging at a greater scale now. He said that it's the perfect time to strengthen and fund aspirational India.
हमने आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान के दौरान जो ऐतिहासिक रिफॉर्म्स किए, उन्होंने देश में नई संभावनाओं के द्वार खोले। आज कॉरपोरेट्स और स्टार्टअप्स जिस स्केल पर आगे आ रहे हैं, वो अभूतपूर्व है। ऐसे में भारत की एस्पिरेशंस को मजबूत करने का, फंड करने का, उनमें इन्वेस्ट करने का, इससे बेहतरीन समय क्या हो सकता है दोस्तों? भारत में, और ये बात हमारे बैंकिंग सेक्टर को भी समझना ही होगा, भारत में ये आइडियाज पर इन्वेस्टमेंट का दौर है। स्टार्टअप्स को सपोर्ट करने का दौर है। स्टार्टअप मूल में एक आइडिया होता है।
The PM also said that the current phase of reforms is a starting point for Indian banks. He added that this is the perfect time for banks to support wealth creators and job creators.
माइलस्टोन एक तरह से हमारी आगे की यात्रा का सूचक भी होता है। मैं इस फेज को भारत के बैंकों के एक नए स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट के रूप में भी देख रहा। आपके लिए ये देश में वेल्थ क्रिएटर्स और जॉब क्रिएटर्स को सपोर्ट करने का समय है। जो अभी आरबीआई गवर्नर ने जॉब क्रिएशन की चर्चा की, मैं समझता हूं ये समय है, आज समय की मांग है कि अब भारत के बैंक अपनी बैलेंस शीट के साथ साथ देश की बैलेंस शीट को बढ़ाने के लिए भी प्रोएक्टिव होकर काम करें।
The PM further said that after 75 years of independence, the country has now reached a stage where ground has been laid to reach for newer economic heights.
1942 और 1930 दांडी यात्रा और क्विट इंडिया, ये दो ऐसे टर्निंग पॉइंट थे जिसको हम कह सकते हैं कि वो एक ऐसा टाइम था जो देश को छलांग लगाने का मूड बनाया था। 30 में वो जो छलांग लगी, वो देश भर में एक माहौल बना दिया, और 42 में जो दूसरी छलांग लगी, उसका परिणाम 1947 में आया। यानी जो मैं छलांग की बात कर रहा हूं, आजादी के 75 साल, और अब एक ऐसी अवस्था में हम पहुंचे हैं कि सच्चे अर्थ में ये छलांग लगाने के लिए जमीन मजबूत है, टारगेट तय है, बस चल पड़ना है।
And the Prime Minister inaugurated the first Global Innovation Summit of the pharmaceutical sector through video conferencing as well today, terming the Indian pharma industry a key driver of the country's economic growth. The PM said high quality and quantity of affordable prices with affordable prices has generated immense interest in the Indian pharma sector around the world, and the global trust earned by the Indian healthcare sector has led to India being called the pharmacy of the world.
Global trust earned by the Indian healthcare sector had led to India being called the pharmacy of the world in recent times, employing nearly 3 million people and generating a trade surplus of about $13 billion. The Indian pharma industry had been a key driver of our economic growth.
The PM invited global investors to ideate in India, innovate in India, make in India and make for the world. He assured that India has the talent, resources and ecosystem required for innovation and enterprise.
I invite you all, ideate in India, innovate in India, make in India and make for the world. We have the talent, resources and ecosystem required for innovation and enterprise. I assure global and domestic industry leaders and stakeholders that India is committed to enhance the ecosystem for innovation.
And the PM also emphasized on ramping up domestic manufacturing of key ingredients for vaccines and medicines, saying that this is one frontier that India has to conquer. He also called for promoting herbal medicines.
2 areas which I want you to explore carefully. The first one relates to raw material requirements. While we have been fighting COVID-19, we found that this was one issue that needs much more attention. The second area relates to India's traditional medicines. In 2021 alone, India exported herbal medicines worth over $1.5 billion. The WHO is also working to set up its global center for traditional medicines in India. Can we think of more ways to popularize our traditional medicines in the line with global requirements, scientific standards, and best manufacturing practices?
Now, moving on, India on Wednesday won re-election to the Executive Board of the UN's Cultural and Education Organization, that's UNESCO, for the 2021 to 25 term. The Paris-based permanent delegation of India to UNESCO announced that India gets re-elected to the Executive Board of UNESCO with 164 votes for the term 2021-25. The election of members of the Executive Board took place on Wednesday. The UNESCO Executive Board is one of the 3 constitutional organs of the UN agency, and it is elected by the General Conference. Acting under the authority of the General Conference, the board examines programs of work for the organization and corresponding budget estimates submitted to it by the Director General. Speaking on India's win at UNESCO MOSMEA, Meenakshi Lekhi was delighted to inform that India has made it to the Executive Board of UNESCO. She extended heartiest congratulations and was thankful to all member countries who supported India's candidature. Now, the UN envoy to Afghanistan on Wednesday delivered a bleak assessment of the situation following the Taliban takeover, saying that the ISKP, which is an Islamic State affiliate, has grown and now appears to be present in nearly all 34 provinces. UN Special Representative Deborah Lyons told the UN Security Council that the Taliban's response to Islamic State Khorasan province's expansion appears to rely heavily on extrajudicial detentions and killings of suspected ISKP fighters. Her comments have come hours after the group, an ideological foe of the Taliban, claimed responsibility for 2 blasts that killed at least 1 person and wounded 6 others in a heavily Shiite Muslim neighborhood of Kabul. The Taliban, she said, has been unable to stem the ISKP's growth. Boris Johnson finally capitulated to days of battering by the opposition on defending former Conservative MP Owen Paterson, who had to quit his House of Commons seat for repeatedly breaking lobbying rules. Terming it a mistake, the British Prime Minister also had to reverse a plan on rewriting disciplinary rules for MPs related to secondary employment. Here's more.
Yes, Mr. Brown, I wish to restate that informing the impression that the former member for North Shropshire had not had a fair process, I may well have been mistaken. But that was certainly the impression that many people seem to have.
And with this, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson admitted on Wednesday the way he handled the findings of a report into a Conservative lawmaker's paid second jobs was a mistake. He defended a botched bid to overhaul Parliament's standard system that has promoted a weeks-long sleaze crisis for his ruling Conservative.
I think it was a very sad case, but I think there's no question that he had fallen foul of the rules on paid advocacy as far as I could see from the report. I think the question that people wanted to establish was whether or not, given the particularly tragic circumstances, he'd had a fair right to appeal.
Boris Johnson also spoke on plans to tackle crimes.
We have, thank you very much, we have quite a lot of statute of one kind or another against serious assault, sexual violence, rape, and as Yvette Cooper has just been saying, the tragedy at the moment is we're not, and harassment, we're not enforcing these enough as it is. And I have to think about how really to tackle the crimes that the public want tackled, rather than widening the range of human conduct that we ask the police to criminalise and enforce against. What I want to see is proper enforcement of the existing law, and as Yvette was saying, prosecution, much more prosecution for the
Meanwhile, in Germany, because of what is happening all over the world with COVID-19, people are now rushing to get vaccinated against the coronavirus as infections are soaring and the governments are imposing restrictions on the unvaccinated. Germany has among the lowest rates of vaccination in the Western Europe and is now the epicenter of a new wave of the pandemic as winter grips the continent. The German Health Ministry said 436,000 people received a shot on Tuesday, including 300,000 boosters, the highest number in about 3 months. Queues have been forming at vaccination centers around the country as well. About 68% of Germany's population is fully vaccinated against the virus, well behind Italy and Spain, which were hit much harder. Parts of Germany are demanding proof of vaccination or recent recovery from COVID-19 for all indoor leisure activities. Germany reported over 52,000 new infections on Wednesday, while the total death toll stood over 98,274. Belgium also tightened COVID-19 restrictions on Wednesday, mandating wider use of masks and enforcing work from home as cases spiked in the country's fourth COVID-19 wave. From Saturday, all people at indoor venues such as cafes and restaurants will need to wear a mask unless seated, and the rule will apply to those aged 10 or older. The previous age threshold was 12. People wanting to eat at restaurants or go to theatres already must present a COVID pass showing vaccination, a negative test or recent recovery. Most Belgians will also have to work from home 4 days a week until mid-December and for 3 days per week after that. Belgium has one of the highest cases per capita rates in the European Union, behind only the Baltic and former Yugoslav nations and Austria at around 1 per 100 over the past 14 days, according to the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control. Now, across the Atlantic, being the worst hit country by the pandemic so far, the US has said that 80% of Americans 12 and older have received at least one COVID-19 vaccine dose. White House Coronavirus Coordinator Jeff Zients announced on Wednesday and highlighted a promising milestone in efforts to curb the spread of the deadly virus. Zients also said 2.6 million kids aged 5 to 11 will have gotten their first shot of the COVID-19 vaccine by Wednesday end. The US plans to invest billions of dollars in expanding COVID-19 vaccine manufacturing capacity and make available an additional 1 billion doses per year. Activists have pressurized President Joe Biden's administration to increase vaccine supply to poorer countries. And let's now take a look at some of the other international stories and news and updates that have been coming in as well.
Gloria Narvaez, a Colombian nun who was held hostage by Islamist militants for more than 4 years in Mali, returned to her home country to a warm welcome on Tuesday. Escorted by Colombian National Police Special Anti-Kidnapping Forces, Narvaez arrived at El Dorado Airport in Bogota, where her fellow Franciscan Sisters of Mary Immaculate greeted her with flowers and hugs. The 57-year-old nun was kidnapped on February 2017 in Kotiala, southern Mali, while on humanitarian assignment. A federal judge on Wednesday sentenced the U.S. Capitol rioter known as Quanon Shaman for his horn headdress to 41 months in prison for his role in the deadly January 6 attack by followers of the then-President Donald Trump. Prosecutors had asked U.S. District Judge Royce Lambert to impose a longer 51-month sentence on Jacob Chansley, who pleaded guilty in September to obstructing an official proceeding when he and thousands of others stormed the building to try to stop Congress from certifying President Joe Biden's election. The sentence matches one Lambert imposed on a former mixed martial artist film punching a police officer during violence, who was sentenced last week to 41 months in prison. The two are the stiffest sentences handed down in any of the roughly 675 riot prosecutions. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said on Wednesday that the United States was seeing troubling behavior from Russia, but he was not sure what Moscow was up with its military buildup near the border with Ukraine. Austin said at a press conference, "We are not sure exactly what Mr. Putin is up to, but these movements certainly have our attention, and I would urge Russia to be more transparent about what they're up to." World Today Desk, TD India.
Let's now get you some sports updates. Well, India's PV Sindhu reached the women's singles quarterfinals of the 2021 Indonesia Masters Badminton Tournament, beating Spain's Clara Azurmendi in 3 games. Sindhu, the 26-year-old two-time medalist at the Olympic Games and a world champion, lost the first game but powered back to win the next 2 to beat her Spanish opponent 17-21, 21-7 and 21-12. This was a 47-minute encounter in the BWF World Tour Super 750 event. And the pair of Dhruv Kapila and N. Sikki Reddy also bowed out of the Indonesian Masters after losing against Supak Jomko and Supisara Pewaswarparam. And in the men's singles, Lakshya Sen bowed out of the ongoing tournament after losing against Kento Momota 13-21 and 19-21. And Spain's Garbine Muguruza claimed her first WTA finals title on Wednesday, defeating Estonian Anett Kontaveit 6-3, 7-5 in Guadalajara, Mexico. After trading breaks early in the match, the 6th seed chipped away at Kontaveit's defenses to convert on breakpoint in the 7th game, as the Estonian put up 4 double faults throughout the first set, got roughly half of her first serves in and struggled with errors. Kontaveit regained her composure in the 2nd set, converting on breakpoint in the 7th game, but could not retain the momentum as the 2-time Grand Slam winner refused to give in, firing off a mighty forehand winner in the 10th game to level score and keep the set going. Muguruza again broke Kontaveit's serve to clinch the affair, crumpling to the court with her hands over her face before greeting her opponent. This was Muguruza's 4th appearance at the season-ending finals and her first in the Champions match. Her win has given Spain its first ever WTA finals title. And now it's time to get you all the updates that are coming in from different aspects of life, apart from hard news, which is all about beyond headlines.
Meghan, the wife of Prince Harry, is appearing on the Ellen DeGeneres show in her first visit to a television talk show since becoming a member of the British royal family. Meghan, formerly known as the Duchess of Sussex, sat down with DeGeneres for an episode that will air in the United States on Thursday, producers of the daytime show said on Wednesday. It was the first big TV appearance for Meghan since she and Harry gave a bombshell interview to Oprah Winfrey in March and spelled out their unhappiness at life within the royal family. The largest collection of Fabergé Easter eggs in 25 years goes on display at London's Victoria and Albert Museum on Saturday, showcasing a variety of over 200 objects. Fabergé in London, Romance to Revolution, takes visitors through the story of the legendary goldsmith Carl Fabergé, shining a light on his little-known British connection. Split into 3 main sections, the sparkling exhibition culminates in the Fabergé's legacy section featuring 15 of his famous Easter eggs. Only 50 were ever made, said McCarthy, and this is the largest collection on public display for over 25 years, according to a press release. The collection includes several eggs which had never been shown before in the UK, including the magnificent Moscow Kremlin egg. The new musical about Britain's Princess Diana officially opened on Broadway Wednesday night. Diana, the musical, had been set to open on 31st of March 2020, but the debut was delayed as Broadway closed its theatres to help prevent the novel coronavirus from spreading further. The show had started previous in early March. A film version of the production, which chronicles Diana's courtship and marriage to Prince Charles and eventual divorce, debuted on Netflix earlier this year. Broadway stars, including Olga Merediz, hit the red carpet before the show and said she was thrilled to be back at the theatre after a lengthy shutdown. Harry Potter stars Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson and Rupert Grint are reuniting with other cast members from the blockbuster film franchise for a special 20th anniversary TV retrospective. But Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling will not be among those making a personal appearance on the show. Robbie Coltrane, who played Hagrid, Tom Felton, Helena Bonham Carter, Gary Oldman, director Chris Columbus, and other stars of the 8 movies will join the former child actors for Harry Potter's 20th anniversary return to Hogwarts on the movie set in London where the first film was made. The special will be broadcast on 1st of January on streaming platform HBO Max. The retrospective will see the cast return to the original Hogwarts boarding school sets that were featured in the first film, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, released in November 2001. Sao Paulo's Fashion Week Edition 52 stretched into Wednesday, featuring designs based on fashion in the popular mobile-based game Free Fire. Designer Daniel Ueda created 20 looks inspired by characters in the mobile battle royale game. The looks were produced at the Alagarson design shop run by Fabio Souza and Alexander Harchowicz. Due to the pandemic restrictions in April last year, the 51st edition of Sao Paulo Fashion Week was cancelled to later go online. Sao Paulo Fashion Week runs from 16th of November through 21st of November. World Today Desk, TT India.
And with that peek at global fashion, that's all we have at the moment in this edition of World Today. But news and updates continue right here on DD India, so keep watching.